to go. All right. Good afternoon, folks. At 12:01 p.m. today, we declared a provincial state of emergency due to the wildfire situation in northern Manitoba, as well as a couple of large communities going to mandatory evacuation over the past 24 hours. We are going to be asking Manitobans to help out in a number of ways, and we want to really underscore just how serious this wildfire season is. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the folks on the front lines, the firefighters who've been battling the blazes for about 2 months now, for the folks who have been helping with evacuees, for the local leaders who are making some really tough decisions, for the health and paramedic response. The community level response as well has been outstanding. So we really want to thank you all for stepping up on behalf of the province of Manitoba. So we had Snow Lake face a really tough fire situation yesterday, and they moved to a mandatory evacuation. We have a large number of people coming out of that community. And then earlier today, Garden Hill First Nation also declared a mandatory evacuation, and there's more than 4,000 people who will be coming out of that First Nation. In Garden Hill, the Canadian Armed Forces arrived on the ground yesterday evening with a Hercules aircraft. They also brought in a team to help plan the evacuation of that community. Today, there are many Hercules flights planned to move out a number of people, as well as commercial flights. We'll get to more details on that in just a second. I want to pause here to thank the federal government. We've been engaging with them extensively over the past few weeks, and in particular over the past 24 hours. They have been a wonderful partner, and of course having the military on the ground here in Manitoba to help us out again during this wildfire season is a sign of the strong partnership that we have. The primary reason that we have called this latest state of emergency is because we need access to more facilities to be able to shelter this large number of Manitobans who are being forced to flee their homes due to wildfires. In the first round of the wildfire season, of course, you know that we stood up the Leela facility. That has been stood up again recently, and there were people staying there last night. We expect many, many more to be staying there tonight. City of Winnipeg, another excellent partner, has stepped up with the Billy Mosienko Arena. And very shortly, under the emergency powers, we will be moving forward with an order so that we have access to the RBC Convention Center in downtown Winnipeg. Now, we are trying to ensure that we are balancing the needs of these evacuations while working with other organizations like this. So the current plan is that there is a large event, an anime convention at the convention center this weekend. We're trying to plan around that so that people who have traveled into the city will be able to carry out that event. But again, we are looking to scale up very quickly and doing our best to accommodate a balancing act between those activities and the very emergent needs of wildfire evacuees and northern communities across Manitoba. As we move forward with these new developments and new provisions for people being forced out of their homes, we're also thinking a lot about security. I want to thank the Winnipeg Police Service for the excellent work that they've done. You all saw news earlier this week about charges being laid in relation to what's alleged to be drug trafficking at hotels, housing evacuees. And now with thousands more coming to the city, we're working with all of our partners, including First Nations, to ensure that there is safety for the general public, for evacuees, for everybody here in Manitoba. So, we have stood up a number of innovative responses that haven't been used in previous wildfire or emergency situations. One example is the Spirit Team. This is a grassroots-led, grounded in Indigenous traditions approach that sees a group of folks that we've retained head out into the hotels, head out into the shelter facilities, and just be somebody that an evacuee can talk to who's not in a uniform. Maybe bringing that more calm atmosphere and the familiarity of being able to crack a joke at the same time that you're trying to counsel somebody through a very difficult situation. We're going to be using a lot more approaches like this in combination with law enforcement, in combination with provincial officers, to be able to manage this upcoming evacuation scenario that we're working through. So those are some of the very high-level points. I think we'll turn it over for a wildfire and emergency management update, and then I'll add a few words at the end before we take questions.
Okay. Thank you, Premier. I'm Kristen Hayward. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Wildfire Service with Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures. As of today, there are 105 active fires burning in the province of Manitoba. We have had 261 fires to date, and the 20-year average on this date is 197. We've done a bit of stats as of end of day, July 8th, so these are a couple days old, but I just wanted to provide some context on how this season compares to other seasons. And I'll just note these numbers will have increased since that time because we've had active fires, but it gives you still a bit of a perspective. So the area burned as of July 8th was just over 1 million hectares. The 20-year average to that date would only be 94,000 hectares. So what we're looking at is somewhere in the neighborhood of nearly 11 times the 20-year average for hectares burned. This is the worst year in our 30-year electronic record. So we have records going back to 1995. And the area burned is the worst that we've seen in all of those 30 years. The second worst was in 2013 when we burned just over 720,000 hectares. So I'll move on to a few fire updates. Just given the extent of the situation, I'm going to focus on some of the headlines for today, but I'm happy to answer questions on any of the other fires that I may not answer or speak to specifically. So I'll start in the north in Garden Hill. There were 3 fires in that community. If you were looking on our provincial fire view map, you may have seen numbers 79, 82, and I don't have that another number on hand, but from now on, those will be referred to as North 79. They've combined. So if you're looking at the map, that's where you look. These are in the community of Garden Hill, and we're both very active, all fires were active yesterday, showing extreme behavior. There was threat to structures, including the community's fuel tank farm, and that's what prompted the mandatory evacuation of the community, as the Premier mentioned. We expect the fire in that area is now over 2,000 hectares. I'll move on to the Leaf Rapids area. Fire North 26 is the one of primary concern to the community of Leaf Rapids. That one got a little bit of rain yesterday, which did help to slow down activity on that fire. We've been working with Office of the Fire Commissioner to set up sprinklers in key areas in the community and are working on dozer guards and setting up engine operations in the community in case of an incursion of the fire into that community. North 47 is in the vicinity of Leaf Rapids. This is south of Provincial Road 493, which goes to South Indian Lake. That fire is now over 7,000 hectares and has crossed that road, which has cut off access for the First Nation, as well as burned some hydro poles on the hydro line that services the community. In the Thompson area, Fire North 61 is estimated to be over 10,000 hectares. We don't have an accurate size just yet, but we're looking to get that mapped as soon as we can. That fire, as some of you may have heard, had a pretty significant thunderstorm move through the Thompson area last night. That rain has definitely helped the situation there, giving us an opportunity today to make good progress and continue to shore up mostly the southern side of that fire, which is the side that would be threatening the city of Thompson. In Cross Lake, Pimachikamak Cree Nation area, we've been talking about a couple of fires there, Fire 5 and Fire North 55. Those fires have now combined into one, so going forward, I believe we'll call them North 5. The fire remains active in the Genpeg and Whiskey Jack landing area. It has crossed Highway 373 and is expected to continue to result in intermittent highway closures in that area due to fire and smoke. That fire did take a run north towards Waboden yesterday. It's still about 25 kilometers away from the community, but the community has decided to advise residents to be ready to go should there be further movement towards the community. I'll move into the west region. There were 3 fires that were impacting the Snow Lake area, but the main concern at this time is West 52. That fire grew significantly yesterday. We saw it grow about 10 kilometers to the north. And due to some anticipated winds from the west today, the town was advised that they may want to consider evacuation, which they have done now. We estimate that fire to be over 5,000 hectares. And the final fire I'll talk about in the update is Fire 61 in the east. This fire has grown about 20 kilometers north to the Atikaki Provincial Park, and portions of the park, including the Blood Vein and Gammon River corridors and Aikens Lake, were closed effective yesterday at 5 p.m. I'll actually just go back as well and mention that due to the Snow Lake fires, Wekusko Falls Provincial Park is closed as of 9 a.m. this morning due to wildfires, and persons were required to vacate the park by noon today. And then I will just spend a moment to go over our out-of-province resources. We currently have 145 personnel in the province assisting with wildfires. This includes 100 firefighters from Mexico, 25 personnel from Minnesota through our Great Lakes Forest Fire Compact, an 11-person incident management team from Parks Canada, and last night we had a 7-person incident management team arrive from New Zealand. Thank you. I'll pass it to Christine.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm Christine Stevens. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Manitoba Emergency Management Organization. As of today, there are 12 states of local emergency that have been declared, and 9 communities are currently under mandatory evacuation orders, with 2 new evacuations that have been declared in the past 24 hours, those being Garden Hill and Snow Lake. As the Premier indicated, we have declared a state of provincial emergency, and I wanted to indicate that as of 1:30 p.m., a broadcast intrusive alert will be sounded to alert the province to that declaration. For folks in Thompson, the City of Thompson is undertaking a pre-registration as part of their pre-planning exercise for evacuations. We do ask people in Thompson to please pre-register using the information on the town's or the City of Thompson's Facebook page so that they can undertake pre-planning and so that they understand the needs of folks should that community evacuated. Snow Lake did evacuate at noon today. An emergency alert was issued for that community as well. With regards to the request for assistance, a request for assistance was submitted to Canada last night, and the Canadian Air Force did deploy to support evacuation in the community of Garden Hill last evening. A flight was able to transport folks from that community out of the community last night, and a number of flights are planned in and out of that community today. I did want to just request that for folks who have been put under a mandatory evacuation order, we're asking that if you have left your home or the area that's been evacuated, that you not return to that area once you've left. It's essential that workers are able to focus on fighting the fire, and it can put you and first responders at risk. So we are asking that once you evacuate an area, you stay out, please. And I'll hand it back to the Premier.
Thanks to you both, Christine and Kristen. In the coming days, people in Manitoba, we are going to be asking you to help out in different ways. And I just want to say that on behalf of the province, it was amazing to see people working together and bringing that helping spirit during the first round of Friendly Manitoba. And now that we're into the second round, in a humble way, we're going to be coming forward, asking for help again. And so I really want to encourage us to work together the way that we did earlier in this wildfire season. This is a wildfire season that's setting records in all the wrong ways, but Manitobans are responding in all the right ones. So we can turn it over to questions.
The challenge of evacuating a flying community is obviously much more difficult. It's a greater challenge than a road community. So are you confident that you'll be able to get everyone out of Garden Hill with those flights? Yes.
One of the assets that Garden Hill has at their disposal is that we can land Hercules aircraft on their airstrip. And so that really increases the amount of people who could be moved out quickly. In that first round, some of the more harrowing situations that we encountered was trying to evacuate communities whose airstrips were smaller, and we had to use a series of smaller aircraft rather than the big Hercules. So right now, I want to thank local leadership. I want to thank Chief Flett for, doing the right thing to keep people safe. Thank the Canadian Armed Forces. And at this stage, it's about just implementing a very solid plan to get people to safety.
Is it known how many flights or how many days that it might take to get everybody out?
Today we got about 1,000 people coming out, 7 Hercules flights via CAF, and then the balance would be coming on commercial.
Mr.
About
Mayor,
80 people per flight. Sorry to interrupt.
my apologies for interrupting. With the evacuation of Snow Lake last night and with Garden Hill, do you have any sense of approximately how many people are going to be coming to Winnipeg over the next coming days needing accommodations?
Well, with Snow Lake, the vast majority of those folks, I think, have been able to secure friends and family to stay with. We are expecting some of those folks, however, to come to the city. And then Garden Hill will be coming to Winnipeg for the most part. Yeah.
Are you updating the fire ban for given the state of emergency?
At this time, we don't have any plans to start the fire bans back up again. Most of these fires are lightning caused, and the others are arson or suspected arson, so a fire ban probably wouldn't have an impact.
Sir, Premier, you referenced the convention that was coming to town. One of the communities put online yesterday that right now, for the immediate future, there doesn't seem to be any hotel space available in Winnipeg. Can you tell us if there are hotels being freed up? Because it's a fairly big community in Garden Hill that we're evacuating.
Sure is. And the reality is that people who evacuate in Manitoba now will be heading to congregate shelters for the most part. We have some number of hotel rooms to deal with elders, to deal with people with really high medical needs that need to stay in hotel, but the vast majority of folks are going to be going to congregate settings. I can just, if you let me wax eloquent for a second here, then I'll be happy to take all your follow-up, mop-up questions later. When we're talking about hotels in particular, I would say, we got thousands of rooms booked right now, the number of which in province is comparable to what we had at the height of the first round of evacuations, which tells us that the hotels are playing ball, they've made rooms available, and we're pretty much maxed out at capacity there in terms of what we can access in the next few days. And that's why we're turning to congregate shelters, because we just need to be prepared to accept several thousand more people in the city in the coming days. And, a site like RBC, in addition to Leela, Billy, and some of the others, are the ways that we can do that quickly.
How many people can be hosted at RBC?
7,000. But that's not necessarily to say we're going to stand up capacity for 7,000 immediately.
Obviously, I need you to do some stuff in French, but I'll just wait for everyone to.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to send any additional evacuees to Niagara Falls or anywhere else outside of province?
We're talking, absolutely. Alberta is engaged with us, and so we don't necessarily have firm plans right now, but Alberta, I want to say thanks for being willing to answer the call, and hopefully we can use their support.
How frustrating is this that we're back at this position?
I think the approach that we have is calmness, right? Like, our role as the provincial government is just to reassure everyone that we're going to get people to safety and that we're going to balance the needs of people fleeing the wildfires with questions about how are we going to pull this off, sheltering thousands of people and making sure that they're looked after with the security and safety considerations in mind.
Do we have, an estimate on how many people are now evacuated with these latest additions?
Yeah, do you want to provide the rundown of numbers here?
Sure. So between the two communities that have evacuated in the past 24 hours, that's approximately 6,000 additional Manitobans. And prior to that, we had about 6,600 that remained out. So we're, 12,600 estimated at this point.
You want to do?
Any more questions? It looked like you're going to ask
Yeah, I
a
have a
question, so we
question.
gotta, yeah.
Premier, so you may have seen a letter from U.S. lawmakers that was sent to the Canadian
I did, yeah.
Just to kind of explain what they're going to give you an opportunity to respond. So they're calling out Canada's lack of forest management, saying we might not be using available technology to reverse the smoke's impact, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to those accusations.
Well, I've shaken the hands of American firefighters in northern Manitoba who are helping us out, and I would challenge these ambulance chasers in the U.S. Congress to go and do the same, and to hear how much the American firefighting heroes who are here, how much they loved our province. And this is what turns people off from politics, is when you got a group of Congress people trying to trivialize and make hay out of a wildfire season where we've lost lives in our province. There's no place for that in politics. If you can't get likes on Instagram from your own skills as a politician, don't bother trying to throw other people under the bus during a state of emergency.
Premier, do you have any concerns about being a good steward of the land and the water and the air while supporting an energy corridor, possibly to Port Nelson? There was a letter to the editor, just another reference on Saturday from a First Nations member in Manitoba who's an environmentalist and an author, who indicated that you're being a sellout by supporting an energy corridor, possibly through Manitoba, and that with the wildfires raging and climate change impacts hitting so hard, that you shouldn't be doing that. Can you be a good steward of the land and the air while you're being somebody who's looking for nation-building projects?
Yes.
How is being in support of an energy corridor that could move fossil fuels and continue with fossil fuel dependency by enabling it, how is that being somebody who's sticking up for the rights of First Nations people who, you know, are being put at risk by the impacts of climate change?
Yeah, I was a little amused to see that headline while I was at a Sundance ceremony over the weekend. But on a more substantive level, every fire engine that I've seen, every flight carrying an evacuee, every chainsaw that a firefighter has used during this wildfire season has been powered with conventional energy. This is a part of our economy and our way of life, and it will be for the foreseeable future. And the economic horse pulls the social cart. If we want a stronger ability to be climate resilient in the future, we got to pay the bills. If we want stronger healthcare and education, we've got to have the hard hats building big projects, and we got to have the miners at work bringing critical minerals to market in an environmentally respectful way, in a way with respect for human rights, and in a way with high labor standards. Every single person who writes a letter to the editor does so on a device that has critical minerals and other mined products inside of it. This is who we are today. And there is definitely a path forward to be able to develop our economy while still practicing our way of life, whether we're talking about our way of life as a contemporary Canadian or also as an Indigenous person.
Je vais vous demander de passer au français, s'il
Oui.
vous plaît.
Alors,
J'aimerais juste savoir, est-ce que vous pouvez nous résumer donc la situation?
oui. Alors, cette saison d'incendie est le plus pire qu'on a vécu ici pendant les 30 dernières années. Alors aujourd'hui, nous avons annoncé une nouvelle situation d'urgence dans notre province. Garden Hill, Snow Lake, des autres communautés étaient forcées de quitter leurs abris à cause des feux, à cause de l'incendie. Alors nous leur aiderons avec ces pouvoirs et aussi avec les partenariats avec le gouvernement fédéral, civique, Première Nation, Métis.
Est-ce que vous pouvez juste revenir aussi sur la question des hôtels, puis de où ces gens-là vont devoir aller, de combien ils sont?
Bien, nous avons beaucoup de salles chez les hôtels maintenant. C'est à peu près le même montant qu'on avait dans la première vague de cette saison d'incendie. Alors maintenant, ça va nous rendre au défi, c'est-à-dire qu'on utilisera RBC, puis Lila, puis Billy, puis les autres endroits en commun. Ouais.
Donc, pas d'hôtel pour les nouveaux évacués.
Non, ça se peut que les aînés, que ceux qui ont des besoins médicaux très hauts seront placés dans les hôtels, mais la plupart du monde vont être rendus chez les endroits en commun.
Puis indéfiniment, on ne sait pas évidemment.
Non. Ouais. Merci à toi.
I could ask just quickly.
Yeah, of course.
The second state of emergency in a single wildfire season, has that ever happened before in Manitoba?
I'm not sure. We'll have to find out and get back to you. Yeah.
It's the first one that's happened in our government's time in office, I can tell you that.
Mr. Premier, one of the things that is often not talked about is pets and animals that are left
Yeah.
behind. Obviously, organizations like Humane Society, Canine Advocacy Manitoba, the work they're doing hard work to do what they can. But how important is that aspect, and and those organizations that take on that work?
Yeah, the people who've stepped up to help are amazing, and folks who love animals, which is to say everybody, I think would be reassured. Like for example, when we had at Lila. The first of this, I guess, new wave of people coming in, we had veterinary supports there. And it's nice to see local leadership, for example, like Snow Lake and others make that plan that you read the list of things you're supposed to plan around your personal evacuation preparations. It's not just medication and your ID, it's also bring your pets, right? And so at the provincial level, it's been great to work with all these organizations and to have that ability to care for people. And again, in this round, there'll be plans made to be able to house pets, keep them safe too.
Just another question in French, sorry. If you could explain Spirit Team, what that is in French.
Ben, Spirit, j'ai oublié ce que ça veut dire, mais c'est une équipe avec une approche autochtone. C'est pas tous des peuples autochtones, mais c'est un groupe de personnes que nous avons embauchées pour rendre chez les hôtels et puis les autres endroits où ce qu'on voit des personnes maintenant avec des défis, soit au niveau des santé mentale, peut-être avec les addictions, peut-être c'est juste une mauvaise journée. Et une chose qu'ils m'ont dit, c'est que la plupart des personnes, si tu es forcé de quitter votre communauté, après ça, la plupart des personnes que tu vas parler seront dans uniforme. Cette équipe de Spirit te donne la chance de juste parler à une autre personne. Et c'est pas peut-être au même niveau de formalité, mais ils ont le même accès aux services pour les aider. One more?
Yeah, I do want to ask, just in terms of pure numbers, what percentage of Manitoban land has now been burned out of the overall?
I don't have it broken down that way, but we can get back to you on that.
And I also do
1
want to
million
ask,
hectares, right? So
Yeah.
I can find the denominator for you.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, you mentioned this is one of the worst wildfire seasons for Manitoba in the last 30 years, but signs have been there. Just want to ask, what can the provincial government do to sort of prevent these situations, or is this just a reality that Manitobans are going to have to live with?
The climate is changing, and our society will need to change along with that. In the most intense period of an emergency, if there are things that we can learn quickly and deploy that right away to help the emergency response, we'll do that. Quick example there is on the security side, for instance, what I was just saying in French. When an evacuee leaves the community, from that point on, almost everyone they speak to is in a uniform or a high-vis vest. And so having another layer of response where it's just somebody in regular clothes with a more, maybe laid-back environment around them can help de-escalate a situation. That's something we learned during the first round of evacuations. The bigger picture questions will come at the end of the wildfire season, and we're definitely planning to have a very thorough engagement inside government, but also outside as well too.
I'm so sorry. Just I know you mentioned you did not have the percentages down, but would you be able to tell us just how much in total right now the land is burning? How many hectares?
I only have what has burned to date, so it's not active area being burnt, but it was 1 million, or just over 1 million hectares, we'll say.
And just a quick clarification for the RBC order. When does that come into effect, and how early could we expect evacuees to be there?
We'll share specifics later on. Yeah,
Is your team volunteers or employees
they're employees. Yeah.
by the province?
Well, we fund it, so it might. Yeah. Now I think we can come.
Thank you, Premier. 2 reporters on Zoom. We'll start with Jeff Keel from CTV. 1 question, 1 follow-up. Jeff, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. Mr. Premier, just I guess why the decision to not go forward with the R cut at Carberry, and the people want an overpass or an interchange as it's known. Is that something your government is now considering?
We made this announcement because we're listening to rural Manitoba, and we want this to be a safe intersection. And while we had a design that brought forward safety, it clearly didn't have the support of the community. So we got to listen to the people who are going to be the most frequent users of it. And we'll go back. Yeah, an interchange is going to be part of the mix of what we look at, because we want to look at safety, but also something that has the public confidence in that safety, so that when people use the road, they're not just reassured that we're listening to rural Manitoba, but we're reassured that their views are taken into mind with the infrastructure they use.
How long could this take, and when could people there expect to see change happen?
Well, one of the things that I've heard from local leadership in the area over the past few days, as I've been, kind of sharing this decision with people, is that it's most important to get it right. You think about the tragedy that took place here. You think about the passion in the area right now. So we're going to listen to that, and we're going to take the time to get it right. And while we may have had one design that was ready to go, we're now going to put in more effort on an alternative design, that new budget, and just to show rural Manitoba that we're listening to you. So we'll be moving ahead. We're not going to let this thing linger forever. We're going to move ahead very quickly. And likely this will be a bit of a regrouping period.
Thank you. Moving now to the Brandon Sun, Sky Anderson. Sky, go ahead.
Hello. Are any of the new evacuees going to be coming to Brandon or West Manitoba in general?
At this point, the current plan is to bring people to Winnipeg, but we may be turning to Brandon in the near future. So I would ask folks in the West Man region, knowing full well that you've done a great job stepping up through the previous evacuations, that we may be turning to you again to help out with your fellow Manitobans.
Thank you.
And that concludes Zoom.
Right.
We got a question back in the room here. I know details are to come, but in general, the emergency order as it relates to the RBC Convention Center, are you basically commandeering the center after this weekend convention wraps up?
I think we want to take, in all these cases where we work with other organizations, we want to collaborate with them and make sure that we're going to make folks whole. So for instance, with Leela and working with the Winnipeg Soccer Federation, they were a great partner. And we just had to have a lot of that back and forth because they had existing commitments with events or, business, and we just want to sort through all those issues. So as we look ahead to RBC, over the next 24 hours, I think you can expect staging and sort of the marshaling of resources to support evacuees there. They do have a large event this weekend that we want to, I guess, be as respectful as possible of in terms of people who've already traveled, already left their homes to participate in this event. But then again, also move relatively quickly to get support set up for evacuees. So more collaborative when it comes to how are we moving in. We're not like rushing in at in a really like kind of brusque or that's a French word I'm trying to use in English. We're not rushing into the RBC in a really rough fashion. We're trying to make sure that we're balancing us setting up shop with their existing activities that are taking place.
But the point of the emergency order is that you have the authority to push if need be.
I don't think we'll need to push. I think the RBC is being a very good partner with us in all this planning activity. The emergency order is more there for legal considerations. Again, they have bookings going into, well, the rest of the summer, right? And so just for them to be able to have flexibility to accommodate our asks, this gives us that tool to be able to work with them.
Can I squeeze one more question in? Could you specify which fires were caused by arson?
I don't have concluded investigations for some of those arson suspected fires at this time.
Okay.
Can we say, and I think everyone in Manitoba would agree with this, now is not the time to set fires. Not cool, not fun, don't do it.
Just one more follow-up question to the energy corridor issue. Premier,
I feel like you're going to ask it no matter what.
the Canada Energy Regulator just gave a 2-year approval to Nistanan to pursue its export of LNG in Hudson Bay. I'm just wondering, is this one of the nation-building projects that you're promoting, and does this encourage you or give you any kind of signal that this is going to happen and Manitoba might be one of the projects that's picked for the federal support?
You know, we've had a really good engagement with the federal government, the Prime Minister. In fact, just yesterday I met with Minister Chartrand, who's Manitoba's new minister in cabinet. And so we're going to keep working with the feds. When it comes to the approach that we're taking with mega projects in Manitoba, though, is we want to have First Nations and Métis on board from the start. I think you've seen a few different approaches being attempted across the country. Ours is we're trying to do our homework and background work behind the scenes, make sure folks are comfortable with the direction forward, and then we'll move ahead with that. You know, one thing that I'd very gently remind folks is for, you know, the little bit of chatter that there's been about a Manitoba mega project, we haven't actually done an announcement of this thing yet, right? And so we're doing the legwork to try and get ready and make sure that the partners that we need to have on side have their concerns around ownership and decision making and environmental aspects all looked after. And then when we feel like things are in a good place and all the partners are ready to move forward, then you'll definitely hear more from us.
On the ARCA, Premier,
yes.
Just to follow up on those questions.
Yeah.
I know you say you're listening to community, but is your government ignoring the evidence of your own experts?
No. No, because there are other alternatives that get you the same level of safety or better. And so our work now is to go back and to look at those alternatives. If you think back to the press conference we did in Dauphin, a long time ago now, when we first talked about this intersection, the consultation that we were going to do, I would point to two things just to remind everybody of from that time. The first is we said we were going to do a consultation. And in my mind, if you go into a consultation with your mind already made up, it's not a meaningful consultation. And so in this case, it's clear that we did have a recommendation around an R-cut. And I think if we would have just pushed ahead with that in the face of very adamant opposition from the community, it would have shown that that consultation wasn't really real. But now with us taking the time, I hope that that provides a reassurance to the community that we are listening and we are going to take their concerns seriously. The other thing I would point to from that session is at that stage, we already kind of had, you know, talking about that press conference in Dauphin again, we already kind of had the lay of the land. Well, not kind of, I'm just qualifying to try and soften this a bit, but we already had a good inventory of what the different options were for that intersection. And the R-cut gives you the highest. Well done.
Thank you.
1:30 on the dot.
I just want to know if there's going to be a second one. There may be a second one. Okay, anyway, so the RCAT gives you the highest level of safety. The interchange gives you the highest level of safety, maybe even like, you know, a few percentage points more in terms of some of the traffic stats. So yeah, so we're looking in one direction. Community's kind of ruled that out. Now we're going to go back to the drawing board, say, how can we listen to the community, this part of rural Manitoba? Again, it's not just Carberry, it's Glenborough, it's CRM, and all of us who drive down the Trans-Canada, really. And just say, how can we come up with a design that shows people that the users of this are going to have confidence, not just in the safety, but also that their views are being taken into account.
If those three were all fairly similar, why call the RCAT the preferred alternative?
I think the RCAT was something that was being brought forward for discussion purposes. It's clear that the community didn't like it. A lot of concerns were raised, and we went and spoke to other jurisdictions as well. They had experienced a similar kind of reaction. But this intersection, the tragedy that happened there, the amount of heartbreak and impact that has had, I think it just necessitates us taking that additional time to listen and that additional flexibility. You know, maybe in another situation, in another infrastructure conversation, we're just going to say, you got two alternatives. We're just going to go ahead with this one. But in this one, given the passion, given the emotions, given the history of the tragedy there, it makes sense for us to take more time and to, you know, go with that alternative design that's going to make sure that folks in the region know that, you know, their voice is heard in our democracy.
You spoke of a desire for meaningful consultation. Do you think that's happened up until this point, when at that tense meeting, you know, people saw the government wanted this option?
Well, I think in the long scope of this project, you will see that the consultation was meaningful. I wasn't crazy about how that consultation meeting was happened, but this isn't about that meeting. This is about what is going to end up being put in place at that intersection at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, some ups and downs, but we're going to land in a spot where this part of the province, this part of rural Manitoba feels good about the approach, and everybody, including Canadians from other parts of the country who've been watching this thing, know that we put safety first as well.
And last one, could an RCAT come somewhere else in Manitoba?
Yes.
Or is that not off the table?
No. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.